Hi there, I'm Sherry, and this is my BFF Rhonda.
And welcome to Designing Bitches. This podcast is for women
and brave men
who eat, sleep, and breathe interior design and recognize their addiction to HGTV.
Whether you're rearranging your living room for the 12th time or here to justify another home goods spree, you're in the right place.
Let's talk design, disasters, and all the beautiful chaos in between.
Welcome back, besties. This week, we're closing the book on the Flipping El Moussas Season 2 with a finale that's got drama, delays, and, spoiler alert, not the flipping tub.
Yes, after what felt like a whole other season, and me frantically thinking my streaming service didn't record it, we finally got the big finish. Tarek and Heather play a high-stakes game of rock, paper, scissors to buy a tiny Lakewood house. Heather wins and the chaos begins.
Think stolen materials, permit nightmares, and comps that would make a flipper cry. But don't worry, there's still plenty of glam finishes, questionable design choices, and El Moussa ego to go around.
So grab your drink of choice and let's dig into the finale. Will this house flip or flop? Let's get into it.
Oh, and before we dive in, we've got to give a big bestie shout out to Allison's Boots for that fabulous 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Yeah.
So Allison's Boots is a person?
Yes, they identified as Allison's Boots.
Okay, maybe it's their gamer name.
We see you, we love you, and your taste is impeccable. So Rhonda, would you and Herb play rock, paper, scissors with a house purchase on the line?
Well, first of all, I'm not playing rock, paper, scissors with my husband when I know he and his ex-wife used to play this game.
Oh.
Yeah, remember? They always made a big deal about Christina always wins rock, paper, scissors. Mm-hmm. So, this is another example of Heather being a carbon copy of Christina, and she seems to be okay with it still.
I feel like you haven't seen their latest Instagram post then.
No.
Where for Heather's skincare line, it starts out as Heather, and then bing, it ends up turning into Christina.
Oh, that makes me so uncomfortable. I need to really process.
These two are becoming besties, like we're besties. You know what? I love the love. I'm so here for it. I think this is going to make the next season of the Flip Off even better.
Okay.
But let's talk about, for this episode of the Flipping El Moussas, about them finding and buying the house.
Yes, I actually enjoyed this episode because it feels a little closer to what real flipping is like. These shows tend to, they pull up, they pay cash for $1 million fixer-upper, go through the process with its ups and downs, and then sell it for a $200,000 profit.
Yeah, somehow all of a sudden the comps work in their favor.
Yes.
Even though they had delays, they sell it for $1 million more than they thought.
The market,
I'm completely with you. This felt a little more real.
Yeah, I appreciate a little more of the reality. With the business side.
I know that these housing prices in the LA area are ridiculous. That part doesn't bug me because I have seen enough of these shows. I understand that. But the house is on a busy street. Mm-hmm. The seller is selling it for $570K. They have an offer, but it's from someone else who wants an inspection. And you and I both know the minute that house gets inspected, that extra bathroom is not permitted.
No, $900K.
They are not going to pay. If they wanted an inspection, they're not going to end up paying $570K for the house once it comes up with all of these issues. Yes. And the permit one is huge. Like you're going from a 3.2 to a 3.1. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they would have come back and lowered their offer. And I have a lot of respect for Tarek and his knowledge of real estate, but I found myself kind of going, because they still kind of want the house and they're really hinging that on there's nothing for sale. Yeah. But then later on, they talk about 30 other houses they have in process. It's like they don't have houses.
Yes, I thought that too. I thought, wait a minute, I thought you didn't have any houses. Yeah.
And even with little to no hedge, once they go through the comps, Tarek also says he's okay with gambling on the house because it's small and it brings back all those memories. So this is like a nostalgic flip for him. And this is where rock, paper, scissors comes in.
Yes. Yes. And again, Heather says, yes, let's do it. I don't know what their business model is. I don't know how many houses they have to have juggling in the air to make ends meet with their finances. I thought the same thing. I thought he's looking at a $20K profit. Like that is not Tarek El Moussa. He's a much bigger fish than that. So yeah, this was kind of interesting to me.
Yes. And then as I was watching, that initial walkthrough they did, I thought, I bet Rhonda's thinking, look, there's Heather in black pleather pants.
What is with the... I hate the way she dresses. Oh, my God. I went back and watched the first episode to see sort of the change in Heather, to get a measure of it.
Yeah,
and I really do appreciate how much more confident she is and how she really is coming into her own. But I hate her clothes. The first episode, at least she wore some clothes I liked. But now it's just, are you wearing pleather again?
Anyway, they waive their inspections and they still pay $2,000 more than the other offers. So they buy this
what's up with that?
960 square foot home in Lakewood for $572,000.
Oh my God, the real estate in LA is insane.
It's crazy. So their plan is they're going to make it into a 3-2, so 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They want to renovate it for $100,000. Jeff comes back at $120,000, but says it won't be a show place. And this is where I really see the evolution of Heather.
Yes.
Because she says, well, we have this cabinet credit and we can use materials from other houses. They're doing because it's all similar styles and colors. And I think back to the very first episode of the Flipping El Moussas, where Heather would be calling a designer and she's like, no, like we're going to do it and we're going to bring in these other materials. I've always been a Heather fan. I am addicted to Selling Sunset as well. And I really enjoyed watching that.
I guess I'm cheering for her. I want her to be her own person. And then maybe that's my frustration with her mirroring Christina all the time. It's like, oh God, become your own person. Stop. Stop. It is interesting to me to see how these houses end up in this condition, right? Like, why is there a walk-through closet?
That is the weirdest thing. And you wonder, was it originally designed that way?
Why is the toilet crammed into a space too small to open a door?
Well, because they added that toilet with no permits.
Yes. So, and then I think about all the relatives I have and just through life circumstances, right? A parent has to move in or children grow up and you have to make modifications to your house and you don't necessarily have the money to do it properly or even permitted. When my dad got remarried, we had to make room for my stepbrother and sister.
Okay.
So my dad took a 2-car garage, put some plywood walls up and made 2 bedrooms. Now, I don't even remember how they got air conditioning or heat.
Oh my goodness.
I know. There were no windows. No windows, by the way. So I'm not even sure that's legal.
Luckily you didn't have a fire. It's not legal.
Yes. And if HGTV walked through that house, they'd think some psychopath had made a dungeon.
Oh, can you imagine? I always think everybody has a cousin named Bob who's done bathrooms before and he can come in and do it. I think sometimes there's that. You rely to your detriment on some family member or a friend of a family member who's like, oh yeah, I can do it. And then all of a sudden you've got a bunch of leaks in your house because Bob really didn't know what he was doing.
He never put the right backing on the tile for a shower, right?
Exactly. And then they call it Urban Bungalow.
Terrible name.
And I'm imagining a candle scent from Target.
Urban
With notes of drywall dust and roof replacement. Like it smells just slightly moldy.
Oh, I was thinking we're burning tire. But anyway, God. Anyway, yes.
Now, I do think it's smart to save money by using the finishes they have left over from other jobs. But it also reminds me, I don't know if your mom did this, but we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and we needed to use everything in the fridge.
Yes.
Any food we bought. And it reminds me of my mom taking the leftovers in the fridge, adding some tomato sauce and calling it something surprise. So if it was mostly veggies in the fridge, this was vegetable surprise. If it was mostly ground beef, it would be hamburger surprise.
Yes.
But the worst was surprise, where she literally had nothing else to add to it. She just took the stuff from the refrigerator and put it all together. And I started thinking, my son has no idea how good he had it.
Oh, absolutely. He wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Yep.
And I'm just like, Urban Bungalow, because nothing says luxury like leftovers.
Yes. And again, if you saw that in the description, would you be attracted to that? Like, oh, let me go check that out. No.
I don't know. And I wonder if they use it in the description. But as Tarek says, all those houses were dope. So take all that dopeness and put it in one house.
There you go.
But that didn't always come out so well when my mom did the same thing with leftovers. So I was really interested to see how it all came together on this episode. They didn't always have leftovers they could easily pick from. It had to be enough of a quantity, or one that if they had a little bit of a quantity and they just had to go buy a few more square feet.
Yeah.
So it wasn't every home they did. It wasn't the best of the best necessarily.
I did enjoy the design challenge of taking these materials from other flips and making them work.
I did too.
I feel this is a better design challenge than the pathetic Rock the Block Chalet challenge.
Can you imagine Tarek creating in an old shed somewhere?
Yeah, we found this up in Big Bear.
That is a good point. This was a better challenge. And they actually do find room to bring the laundry inside, which when you think about what they said on their comps, the best comp they found had a laundry room inside and a 2-car garage, but they're not going to be able to replicate that part of it.
But I think it turned out great. It could have been a disaster. As our favorite designer, Nate Berkus, says, he talks about this room looks like a tossed salad, right? Like,
yeah.
You have all these different kinds of tile and all these different styles. And I thought they did a pretty good job on that.
I'll tell you, for the actual renovation, I do like that this is the one show, or Tarek is the one person who actually thinks through where the TV is going to go.
Yes, they never talk about that.
So he ends up taking out the slider in the living area and putting a window there instead, so that they have more room to put like a couch against the wall and they can put the TV on the other wall. And I feel like we never hear that in other shows unless maybe a client says something.
Yeah, no, 100% of the people we know have a TV in their living room usually. Yeah, more than
100% of the people I know have more than one TV.
Yes, correct. And I will say that a lot of shows, they just never address it. And that's, again, one of the first things I think when I see one of these design shows is, where's the TV go?
Yeah. Now, did you think it was staged when Jeff calls with bad news and then worse news?
I think all of that's staged because, again, there's... it just happens to be on camera. It just happens to be when they're both glammed up.
When they're driving and they're pretty close to where the house is because they're going to go see it.
Exactly. So stop trying to tell me that's, just, oh my God, the phone rang.
So what he's telling them is, one, permits are taking longer than expected. And they explain later they're at the mercy of the city that they're in.
Yes.
As to how long that takes. And they got robbed. And it was electrical wire, plumbing cut out for just like, as Tarek explains it, just little pieces of copper. And then they even take the tub.
The tub.
Do you wonder like how did nobody see that?
That's exactly what I was thinking. And I used to work with law enforcement, and I bet they think it's the next door neighbor, right? Like you couldn't, like he said, how far are you going to go with a bathtub?
True.
And if it's the next door neighbor or just 2 houses down or something,
I loved them going through the whole discussion of how much do you invest to prevent this from happening?
Yeah.
Because often they never get the insurance money because they can't wait that long. That would cost them more money. And the other thing I thought of, like maybe in their preventive measures, they take a minute to meet the neighbors.
I was thinking the same thing.
I have a Gladys who lives right across the street from me. And I promise you, if someone were carting a tub out of my house, he would be like Johnny on the spot. Absolutely. I wouldn't have to worry about it. So it made me wonder, is there something to invest in, running over there in your 6-inch heels and your black pleather pants and saying, hey,
here's my card.
Yeah.
Call me if you see anything strange. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Now, then in order to recoup the money, at this point, they don't know what insurance is going to cover. And I don't know that they really realize that it's going to take so long to finish this house that they're going to have time to wait for insurance because like, let's cut out the air conditioning. And it sounds crazy, right? You live in a place that gets very hot. You couldn't live there without air conditioning. But my grandparents' house in Santa Barbara has never had air conditioning.
Are they by the ocean?
Lakewood is 9 miles from the ocean. I looked it up.
Okay.
My grandparents are probably a little closer than that. So I don't know. I guess it's not the craziest idea, but they do decide to do these mini splits instead. And that's another thing that I appreciate about the shows where it's Tarek is you really see the decisions they're making to keep it within the budget.
Yes.
And I don't, again, especially when you're dealing with a client who's like, oh, I'll pay another $5,000. You don't always see that on other shows. It does feel more realistic to me, even though
this time.
A lot of Redditors do not agree with me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this time it did feel like a genuine issue because, again, the margins were so small on this house for them and the risk was high. So, I got that idea of let's talk about the air conditioning, but it's just, you're going to pay $800,000 for a house without air conditioning? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I just think you would knock yourself out of the market.
Talking about Heather's design, I did like the idea that Heather had for that bed alcove created with paint.
Me too.
And I was thinking this is a million times better than what Jonathan and Jordan did in that primary bedroom in Rock the Block.
Yes.
It did look a little more high end, even for a very small room.
Yes.
And the layout of the room kind of supported them doing it. But when I think about the kitchen that she did, I'm much more a fan of some kind of contrast from countertop to backsplash.
Yeah.
So this idea that we had the dark countertops combined with the even darker backsplash. And what they talked about is it makes it feel high end because these materials are high end. But I feel like a brighter kitchen would have been better, especially if you're selling it to the masses.
Such a small house. I mean, in a 900 square foot house, I would expect bright white kitchen, but I liked it. I didn't mind the dark kitchen.
The gray on gray just killed my eyes.
They show everything.
Yeah, that's true. Also, did they lay down grass with no irrigation system?
It looked like it, yeah.
It did, because they're saying, like, we're going to have to water it to keep it in there. So, like, they spent the money to buy the grass, and then they don't put an irrigation system. And you would have to regularly water, even in that part of LA, for it not to die.
And you notice in his flipping 101s, I think he's chewed out a couple of people for not planting seed, right? Like if you know this flip is going to take, in his case, it seems like a year.
They definitely had the time, right?
Months, yeah. You could grow that grass. You didn't have to buy it. And that's a huge cost savings. Seed versus sod is quite a difference. Again, I don't know what the condition, what circumstances led to them say throw down some grass right now. And he didn't use any of his mulch. Did they even show the backyard? Did we see the backyard of that place?
We did, because it feels like the front yard. Sometimes I got confused because they actually would drive in on the alley where it's not so busy.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I'm thinking, why do you have the front of the house with an electrical panel and the mini split unit? And then I remembered, this is the back of the house. They're just not there.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So they did do it. It's all in grass.
I just remember her not wanting to walk on it in her
6-inch heels. Yeah. I did like the darker color on the interior doors, and I was surprised by that.
Me too. The dark black doors with the white walls look beautiful.
I felt like they were more charcoal gray, but they could have been black. It's hard to tell.
Dark. They were dark.
They were dark, that's for sure. I really thought that looked good. So,
me too.
Anything else about the design you want to add?
No, I don't really have anything else. It was a small house. Not much to say.
960 square feet. So I was amazed that they were only $12,000 over their renovation budget.
Yeah. And
I tried to kind of estimate how long they were over their schedule because the carrying costs were $34,000 instead of $20,000.
It seemed like
they were almost 3 months over their original estimate. And we just have no idea.
If those were real flippers, like Rhonda and Sherry, we'd have gone broke waiting for permits.
Yeah.
Right?
So the market kind of helped them a little bit, and they're listing it at $799. And according to the Redditors, as of a couple of days ago, it is listed and it hasn't sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're going to keep with those carrying costs. And it makes me think, do they lose money on this one?
If you think about the mortgage payment at current interest rates for $800,000, yikes.
That's a little crazy.
Pretty high for a 900 square foot house on a busy street. Just saying.
Yeah. So like you, I did look at season 1 Heather compared to season 2 Heather. And one of the things I had forgotten was that their dog Bugzy often accompanied them on their flips.
Yes.
And we don't see Bugzy at all. I don't think we've seen Bugzy in season 2, except maybe at their
Bugsy's
house.
been crossing the Rainbow Bridge? Is that what you're saying?
No. I think we still see Bugzy at their house. So I feel like it just became too much. And now she's had a baby. So maybe Bugzy is no longer the baby.
Oh, poor thing.
I know. They would have this perfectly staged house and Bugzy would jump on the bed.
Yes.
And mess it all up.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing the shift for Heather for me, it's been since Selling Sunset, then season 1, and then the flip off to Heather in season 2, in that very first episode they did of the Flipping El Moussas, she kept trying to up the budget. And now here we have Heather at the end of season 2 working hard to save money. So I think she's really become a very good house flipper. I also wonder, does Heather still sell luxury real estate? Because she definitely was doing it in season 1 still.
Yeah, she doesn't talk about it at all. And there isn't I've got to do this, or like the first season they had a lot of that, I've got something else to do, or I've got to put the babies down. Yeah, there just seemed to be a different vibe. And I will say, I'm liking Tark's growth as well, right?
Same.
They don't play on the antagonism that they used to with Christina. It's much more of him kind of being proud of her. I can see where she's vulnerable, and it's kind of sweet to see the dynamic change between them now that she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, I also can really appreciate it. And I was thinking when I was watching that first episode, she never talked about being insecure. Like, she wasn't really as vulnerable. We didn't hear about that, like how she was really feeling and the comparisons to Christina until the flip off.
That's a great point. I forgot about that. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if we get a season 3 of the Flipping El Moussas. I hope we do.
Yeah,
but I would like to see it come back in a shorter format. Maybe it's just my attention span. Well, that wraps it up for this season of the Flipping El Moussas. Thanks for hanging with us, besties. Tarek and Heather's Urban Bungalow gave us leftover chic with a side of permit purgatory, stolen tubs, and comps that said, no thanks. It still hasn't sold, but we're loving Heather's evolution from luxury queen to budget baddie. Still in Pleather, though, and we're crossing our fingers for a season 3. And obviously, we didn't just watch. We showed up with hot takes, micro meltdowns, and a whole mood board of opinions. Because let's be real, what kind of bestie podcast would this be if we didn't?
That's right. I'm calling out Tarek for having any discussion on the cost of air conditioning. Seriously, you are going to charge $800,000 for a very small house, and you are actually talking about no air conditioning in Southern California?
Oh, they did end up giving it air conditioning, but they saved $6,000.
Yes, well, I just start to get a little angry and fairly judgmental that Heather is wearing $600 Prada sunglasses. And we know she's got a drawer in her custom closet at home just for her sunglass collection. But, Tarek, you don't want people who buy your home to live in a little bit of comfort? That's my only beef with Tarek. It's really his money. He can do whatever he wants with it. But all that money wasted on outward appearance showing how successful he is. But then he has the nerve to cheap out on something like a patio cover or air conditioning for his flip. Our standing ovation, at least from our office chairs, goes to Chef's Kiss on Design. Great job, Heather. This felt like the modern farmhouse that Jonathan and Jordan cannot seem to get right on Rock the Block.
It sure does.
I love the dark doors and white walls. The kitchen and the bathroom showed how good high-end materials can look, even in a 900 square foot house. I feel like whoever gets this house is really going to feel a little special with those kind of materials.
We've done a special posting on Instagram and Facebook for this episode. We're loving Heather's HGTV evolution and want to tell Heather's pleather pants we said hi.
I hate them.
We're loving from just call the designer to I'll stretch this budget myself. Which Heather are you today? Season 1 luxury queen or season 2 budget baddie? Be sure to let us know and you could be in our Designing Bitches Bestie Hall of Fame.
Go Heather.
If you're vibing with us and your brain is basically made of HGTV at this point, you need to catch up on all of our episodes at designingbitches.com. We're literally everywhere you listen to podcasts, so hit that follow, like, star, or whatever button your app throws at you. We're not picky, we're just needy. Well, until next time, besties, bye!
Bye, see you soon.
From bathrooms to kitchens, every